Hi, I'm Scott from the Skiers Lounge, and today I want to talk to you about Dale Boot. So what is Dale Boot? This is Dale Boot. Designed in 1969 by Mel Dallabout, an American. He was a bit of an engineer, and he was also a skier. He took up skiing, and within a year he was already winning regional events. But he didn't think boots were good enough at the time. Don't forget, this is 1960s, late 60s. There was still leather on boots. So what he decided to do was develop basic injection technology, foam injection, moulding, and came out with a solution which is Dale Boot. A lot of other brands liked the idea of that, especially ones in Europe, but thought they were untouchable, so they copied it, and some of those brands are on some people's feet today. They're the big brands. He then successfully sued them, which allowed him to invest even more in this product. So what actually is Dale Boot as in the product itself? Well, it's a fully mouldable custom shell at the bottom here, the clog. So we take measurements using a 3D scanner. And that 3D scanner takes over 1 million measuring points and 38 core measurements that we use as boot fitters to help shoot this clog and then mould it to your specific requirements. So we do the measurements in here. It's then hand stretched and reset in Kitzbühel in the mountains of Austria, and you come out with a fully customized lower clog. That is then married to a selection of upper cuffs to give you the perfect fit, not only around the foot, but also in the calf. So probably the most adjustable, customizable boot on the planet. Additionally, it features key innovations such as an independent flex system. So you have a 20-step adjustment flex system on here. So most boots have one flex, one setting of stiffness, and maybe you can take a bolt out. This one's got 20 steps. So this example here, the VFF Pro, this will take you from 100 to 130 flex. So quite a big range. It's independent as well, so if you change the flex here, it doesn't affect the shape of the boot down here, which every other boot brand does. As you flex forward, there's bulging in the clog down here, which changes the shape, changes your comfort level. That's gone with this boot. It's not just about comfort though, it's about performance. Rob, who now owns Dale Boot, is a former Olympian and mogul skier, so he's basically a bit of a nutter, but he's also a thoroughly nice man. And this boot was originally developed for mogul skiing, and you will often see, and if you watch the Olympics coming up shortly, you will see this boot being used in mogul competitions because it's one of the stiffest, most accurate and precise boots out there. And trust me, if you're doing mogul skiing and doing ballet in the sky in between bumps, you need a decent performing boot. But for the rest of us, there's VFF Pro and there's VFF, which runs from about an 80 flex to 100. Other features include a full adjustment in the lean, so we can actually take this lean adjustment forward up to about 8 degrees. Most other brands, it's a couple of degrees in it. And again, that is independent of every other setting on this boot. So you can have the strangest looking legs on the planet. This boot is the most likely solution for you if you've tried everything else. So if you've got foot different size, so a difference of say 2 shell sizes, this boot can easily adapt to that, and we've already done it here. If you've got one leg longer than the other, this boot can adapt to that. It has a built-in baseboard which can be adjusted. And finally, it also does alignment and canting. So these soles can be replaced, giving you the ability to actually have that boot firmly planted on the snow, but also flat to the snow, so your ski is flat to the snow. So you've got total alignment that only usually racers have access to, all built into a boot that can suit a racer, but also suit just the rest of us that go out skiing on blues and reds for 1 week a year. So if you're looking for the most comfort out of a ski boot, then that's going to be a Dale Boot as far as we're concerned, but it also has the performance. So let's go through the Dale Boot fitting process. It's a little bit different to a standard ski boot fitting, so we need some advanced equipment to help us in our challenge of measuring for the perfect boot fit. And we've got our AirTrex scanner here, and I've got my usual victim Dan here. Are you ready?
Yep.
And I'm going to show you the process for scanning the foot. So first thing we do is, Dan, if you can just step onto the machine and face the screen. And just get your feet nice and level as we see in the picture on the screen and face forward. And when you're ready, just hit the start button and you get ejected through the ceiling. Not really. And what the scanner's doing here is spending 20 seconds scanning the foot, getting a 3.5 million data sets, and it's also doing a foot pressure test on the screen here to show us where the weight distribution is. So that will help us when we come to make custom footbeds, which we always put into a Dale Boot and is included in the price. We send a copy of the scan to the customer as well, so they can see their foot in glorious 3D. And now we can basically look at the foot profile. We can look at the Achilles here, which is quite V-shaped, look at the width, but more importantly for us and for Dale Boot, we have some core measurements here. There's 16 of them, so 32 measurements in total across both feet to help us get that perfect shaping of the clog of the ski boot and also get the right cuff size selected as well and liner. Once we've taken a scan and done the foot pressure tests, we then moved into the Dale Boot platform. We use a trusty iPad for that. You'll see us using them throughout the shop here for boot fitting. We press our Dale Boot button, hit the old QR code and move into the fit on our iPad here rather than on the screen there. So now we've taken the scans on the AirTrek system, which gives us all the standing measurements. We move over to the boot fitting area here onto the comfy Chesterfields, and we do a standard measurement using manual devices like this, because the scan gives us accuracy and then the manual measurements give us confirmation that those measurements are accurate and true. One other thing we do is we do a full biomechanical assessment like we would normally do to any ski boot fitting, but with the Dale Boot we specifically do a measured dorsiflex test. So Dan, if you can just put your foot on here, and what we do here is we take this Brannock device and we have a level device here, and I ask you, Dan, to raise your foot as much as you can, keeping your ankle down as a pivot. So raise your foot, and then we would raise this device and place the foot as soon as it touches there, and we take this measurement here, which is about 30 degrees in this example here, and we do that to both feet, and that measurement will be used to get the perfect alignment of the cuff when we do the forward lean adjustment. Now we need to take 2 calf measurements for each leg to get that perfect fit through the cuff of the ski boot, so 20 centimetres and also at 30 centimetres where we got a bit more muscle bulk, and we do that on both legs. Thank you, Dan. Now we've taken the key measurements. Those are added to the measurements we've taken off the scanner previously, and we go through a bit of a little interview here just to get the boot set up perfect. So one of the key things we ask is about the balance between performance and comfort. The beautiful thing about Dale Boot is we can specifically put that in, and that will then lead to choices in the boot construction, but also the liner as well and the liner sizing. So if you want a perfect balance, 50-50, but you can always ask us for a bit more performance, or you can go all out for comfort. The choice with Dale Boot is really yours. Final part of the questionnaire process is just to check with Dan as well what type of skiing he does, whether it's moguls, piste, off-piste, and also what he wants to achieve out of the boot in the future. We also note things like the previous boot choices, previous boot size, just to give us some leanings towards decision making when the boot is being constructed in Kitzbühel. All that data then gets sent to the Kitzbühel database for Dale Boot, and they start construction normally within hours, and the boot takes about 2 days to produce, and just as long as that to ship over to us here in the UK for final fitting. So here we are at the follow-up session from the first fitting for Dale Boot, and this is only a few days after the initial order's been placed. It's been manufactured in Kitzbühel and shipped over as express post. What we would have done at the last fitting is also made a pair of custom moulded footbeds. They are moulded perfectly to the soles of your feet to give us correct alignment inside the shell of the boot and inside the liner. And now we're going to use Dale Boot's unique alignment plate, which sits at the heel of our ski boots, to give us that perfect setup inside the shell of the boot so the leg is nice and straight and the calf through the cuff of the boot. To do that, we take the footbed, which is under Dan's feet here, and we just place the bed there and pop you on there. And what we're looking to make sure is that there's even contact pressure throughout and that the foot is nice and neutral, so we've kept the knee nice and straight. And then what we can then do, if you just lift up, Dan, is on the back of this plate there are these screws, and we can actually adjust left and right tilt and fore and aft as well. So we can put a heel lift in without the need to stick anything in the boot, but we can even do the opposite and actually cant you backwards, which in some unique cases is required as a boot fitter, and you can't really do that easily in any other ski boot brand. Now that the shell of the boot has been correctly set up, we can now put the boot onto Dan's feet and do the final adjustments and look at stance alignment. So now that Dan is in his pair of boots, we're going to do a stance alignment check. So we have a stance alignment board and we have this stance alignment device, which I'm not trying to whip you with, Dan. And then you can just basically put your feet carefully onto the board and then slide forward until you stop, and then that foot level and stand up. And what this does, it allows me to see here Dan's alignment. So this is tilting and I can see that Dan is actually ever so slightly tilted inside by about 1 degree. So what we now can do is adjust the soles of these boots, putting on a 1 degree adjustment to adjust the canting of the boot so it's nice and flat and square to the ground, so the ski will be nice and flat too. All just from this measurement here. So we've taken off the standard soles here and put on a 1 degree sole set on this left boot. And now we can check that measurement again. So that's all the adjustments done to the boot on the sole area. We can then look at the cuff adjustment and the flex for the final settings for Dan here. And then if there are any little areas that need a little bit more attention, the beautiful thing about a Dale boot, it's easy to work on. It's made from TPU plastics, unique to them. And we can do little stretches like we would normally do to any other ski boot fitting. But the core of the boot, as we know from all these measurements and this entire process we've just done, is absolutely spot on, and it's just making those fine-tuning fits just like we do with any other ski boot fitting. And Dan, you'll be then ready to ski away on your new boots. So that's the process of fitting a Dale boot custom ski boot. But what do you get for your investment? Because it is an investment, a ski boot, and especially a Dale boot, but you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, as they say over there. So you're getting included in the price a custom-made footbed, like we do and recommend for all our ski boot fittings here. So that's inside. You're getting a custom designed with Zip Fit or Intuition liner. So you can either go for the standard Intuition liner, which is anything but standard because it's been tuned to Dale boot specifications, or you can upgrade even to a Zip Fit like I have in my boot here. You can choose custom color choices on the spat, which is this part here, and your buckles. So on my boot here, and in love of custard that I have, I've gone for this custard color effect on all the buckles, and I've even got the graphic highlighted as well. You've got the full fitting guarantee with this boot. So say you take it away and you find that it needs further adjustments in the future, whether you've changed or the boot's changed, there's a sort of lifetime guarantee on the boot as well. So you do get your adjustments when you need them. And finally, we have stance alignment. So we check your alignment on the boot here versus the ground, so you're nice and square. And these soles will be replaced with the perfect soles with the perfect angle to keep you nicely planted on the mountain for easier turns, more control, more precision, and ultimately more comfort.